In 1976, Elvis had a set list prepared for his Detroit concert, but when a fan shouted for a song he hadn't performed in 15 years, something shifted. Elvis threw away the plan and spent the next 2 hours singing forgotten songs from his past. It became the most magical, unpredictable concert of his career. It was October 24th, 1976, and the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit was packed with 80,000 people waiting for Elvis Presley. Backstage, Elvis was going through his pre-show routine, reviewing the set list, warming up his voice, getting into costume. The set list was the same one he'd been performing for months, the hits everyone expected. Hound Dog, Suspicious Minds, Burning Love, Safe Choices, Crowd Pleasers, songs his band could play in their sleep. Elvis was exhausted. The medications, the divorce, the touring schedule, it was all taking its toll. Some nights performing felt like going through the motions, giving people what they expected while feeling disconnected from the music that had once meant everything to him. Charlie Hodge, Elvis's longtime friend and stage assistant, noticed Elvis's mood. "You okay, boss?" "Just tired, Charlie. Feels like I've been singing these same songs my whole life." "Well, they're great songs. People love them." "I know. Sometimes I wish I could remember what it felt like when music was fun, when it was about discovery, not just delivering what's expected." Charlie nodded sympathetically, but didn't press. He'd seen Elvis in these melancholic moods before. At 8:15 p.m., Elvis walked onto the stage. The crowd erupted. 80,000 people screaming, loving him, wanting him. Elvis forced a smile and launched into the opening number. He was about 5 songs into the set, mechanically working through the planned program when something unexpected happened. During a brief pause between songs, a voice from the crowd, loud and clear, shouted, "Blue Moon! Sing Blue Moon!" Elvis stopped. His hand was halfway to the microphone for the next planned song, but he froze. Blue Moon. He hadn't performed that song since 1961. It had been one of his earliest recordings, back when he was just starting out, back when music was new and exciting and full of possibility. "What did you say?" Elvis asked, peering into the crowd, even though he couldn't see who had shouted. The same voice called out again, "Blue Moon! Please! My mother used to sing it to me. She passed last month. It was her favorite Elvis song." The arena had gone quiet, everyone listening to this exchange. Elvis felt something crack open in his chest. A memory, a feeling, a door to the past he'd kept firmly closed because looking back hurt too much. "Blue Moon," Elvis repeated softly. Then, to his band's surprise, he turned to them. "Do you guys remember Blue Moon?" The musicians looked at each other, confused. It wasn't on the set list. They hadn't rehearsed it in years. "I think so," said James Burton, the guitarist. "We can try it." Elvis made a decision that would change everything about that night. "You know what?" Elvis said, both to his band and to the crowd. "I'm tired of the same old songs. How about we try something different tonight? How about we go back to the beginning?" Elvis turned to his band. "Forget the set list. We're going to do this old school. I'm going to call out songs, old ones, the ones I used to love, and we'll figure them out as we go. You with me?" The band looked nervous but excited. This was wildly unprofessional. They could make mistakes. Songs could fall apart. But there was an energy in Elvis now that they hadn't seen in months. "Let's do it," James said, speaking for everyone. Elvis turned back to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to take a risk here. I'm going to sing some songs I haven't performed in years, maybe decades. Some of them I might not remember all the words to. My band is going to have to improvise. We might mess up. We might sound terrible. But we're going to have fun doing it. That okay with you?" The crowd roared their approval. Elvis closed his eyes, reached back into his memory, and started singing the opening line of Blue Moon, the song that had started this whole spontaneous journey. His voice was rough at first, searching for the melody he hadn't visited in so long. The band found the chords, supporting him, following his lead. And something magical happened. As Elvis sang this forgotten song from his past, his voice opened up. The tiredness fell away. He wasn't performing anymore. He was remembering. He was feeling. He was connecting to the music in a way he hadn't in years. Tears started rolling down Elvis's face as he sang. Not sad tears, cathartic tears, the kind that come when you realize you'd lost something precious and just found it again. The crowd sensed what they were witnessing. This wasn't a professional, polished performance. This was Elvis Presley being vulnerable, being real, being present in a way that transcended entertainment. When Blue Moon ended, the applause was different from the usual screaming. It was reverent, grateful, moved. Elvis wiped his eyes and smiled, a real smile this time. What else should we do? What other old songs do you want to hear? People started shouting requests, songs from the 1950s, deep cuts from albums, ballads he'd recorded once and never performed live. "I'll be home for Christmas," someone yelled. It was October, nowhere near Christmas, but Elvis laughed. Why not? Let's bring some Christmas in October. He sang it, and the entire arena swayed, thousands of phone lighters creating a sea of light, even though it was only autumn. "Old Shep," another voice called out, a country ballad Elvis had recorded as a teenager. "Man, I haven't thought about Old Shep in forever," Elvis said. Then he sang it, his voice cracking with emotion as he remembered recording it decades ago when he was just a kid with dreams. For 2 hours, Elvis abandoned his carefully planned set list and just sang. He sang gospel hymns he'd learned in church as a child. He sang country ballads from his Sun Records days. He sang deep cuts that only hardcore fans would know. Sometimes he'd forget lyrics and have to improvise or laugh and start over. Sometimes the band would struggle to find the right key, and they'd have to adjust mid-song. Sometimes Elvis would stop and tell a story about recording a particular song, about what his life was like then, about how young and hopeful he'd been. "You know what?" Elvis said about an hour into this spontaneous concert. "I'd forgotten how good this feels. Just singing, not performing, not trying to be Elvis Presley the icon, just being a guy who loves music." The crowd was mesmerized. Many people later said this night felt more like an intimate gathering than a stadium concert. Despite the 80,000 people present, Elvis had created an atmosphere of connection and vulnerability that made everyone feel like they were part of something special. Charlie Hodge, watching from the wings, was crying. He'd seen Elvis perform thousands of times, but this was different. This was the Elvis he'd met 20 years ago. Joyful, spontaneous, connected to music not as a career, but as a calling. Around the 2-hour mark, Elvis slowed down. "I should probably sing some of the hits, huh? You guys deserve to hear the songs you came for." The crowd actually protested. "No, keep going. More old songs. This is perfect." Elvis laughed, genuinely delighted. "You mean you don't need me to sing Hound Dog for the 1,000th time?" "No," the crowd shouted back. "Well, that's refreshing," Elvis said, "because I'm kind of tired of that dog." The arena erupted in laughter. Elvis did eventually perform a few of his major hits, but he did them differently. Slower, more stripped down, with new emotional interpretations that came from the vulnerable place he'd accessed through the forgotten songs. When he sang "Can't Help Falling in Love" near the end of the night, he changed the arrangement to a slow, intimate version that made people cry. "You know," Elvis said before the final song, "I came here tonight planning to do my job, give you the show you expected, go home. But you," he pointed to the crowd, "you gave me a gift tonight. That one person who shouted for Blue Moon reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. Not because it's a career, because it's magic, because it connects us. Because when I sing a song that means something real, and you hear it and feel something real, we're not strangers in a stadium. We're humans sharing something sacred." His voice broke. "Thank you for letting me remember that. Thank you for being patient when we messed up. Thank you for caring more about the feeling than the perfection." The concert ended around midnight, 2 hours longer than scheduled. Venue staff had been trying to shut it down for the last hour, but Elvis and the crowd were in their own world, untouchable. When Elvis finally left the stage, he was exhausted but elated. Backstage, he grabbed Charlie Hodge in a hug. "That was the best show I've done in years, maybe ever. It was special, boss. Really special." The musicians were buzzing with adrenaline. They'd just participated in something completely unique. A major stadium show with zero plan, pure improvisation, driven entirely by emotion and spontaneity. "We should do this more often," James Burton said. "Screw the set lists. This is what music should be." But Elvis knew the truth. We can't do this more often. That's what made it special. It wasn't planned. It can't be repeated. It was just a moment. News of the Detroit concert spread through Elvis fan communities. People who'd been there called it transcendent, magical, unlike any concert they'd ever experienced. Bootleg recordings circulated, though the quality was poor and couldn't capture the full atmosphere. Music journalists who dismissed Elvis as a nostalgia act doing the same old show heard about Detroit and regretted not being there. Some tried to attend subsequent concerts hoping to see another spontaneous show, but it never happened again. Elvis returned to his regular set list for the remaining tour dates. But people who knew him said something had changed. There was a lightness to him that hadn't been there before Detroit. A reminder that music could still surprise him, could still move him, could still be more than just a job. The fan who shouted for Blue Moon, a woman named Patricia Chen, whose mother had recently died, was found by media a week after the concert. She was asked why she'd requested that particular song. "My mother played that Elvis recording every Sunday morning," Patricia said. "It was her ritual. She'd make breakfast and play Blue Moon on repeat. When she died, I couldn't listen to it anymore. It hurt too much. But that night in Detroit, I was there with my daughter, 3 generations of Elvis fans. And suddenly, I wanted to hear it. I wanted to share that song with my daughter, the way my mother shared it with me. I didn't expect Elvis to actually do it. When he did, when he cried singing it, I felt like my mother was there, like the music connected all of us across time." Elvis sent Patricia a handwritten note after hearing her story. "Thank you for reminding me what music is for. It's not for impressing people or maintaining a career. It's for connecting hearts across time and distance. Your mother knew that. You know that. I'd forgotten, but you helped me remember." Elvis. The Detroit concert became legendary among Elvis historians as the Forgotten Songs Night, or the Spontaneous Show. It's studied in music schools as an example of what happens when artists prioritize authenticity over perfection. "The Detroit concert proved something important," said music producer Rick Rubin. "People don't want perfect. They want real. They want connection. Elvis could have played it safe that night. Instead, he took a risk, got vulnerable, and created something that people still talk about almost 50 years later. That's the power of being present." Today, bootleg recordings of the Detroit concert are among the most sought-after Elvis recordings among collectors. Not for sound quality, the recordings are rough, but for the emotional quality. You can hear in Elvis's voice the rediscovery of joy. You can hear the spontaneity, the mistakes, the laughter, the tears. The concert also influenced how other artists approach live performance. Bruce Springsteen has cited the Detroit story as inspiration for his own spontaneous extended concerts. Pearl Jam occasionally throws away their setlist mid-show in homage to what Elvis did that night. The lesson of the forgotten song isn't about nostalgia, though. It's about remembering why we started, about reconnecting with the passion that got buried under professionalism and expectations and routine. Elvis had been singing the same hits for so long that he'd forgotten why he loved music. One fan's request for an forgotten song broke through his exhaustion and reminded him, music isn't about delivering a product, it's about sharing something real. For one night in Detroit, Elvis wasn't the king performing for his subjects. He was a musician rediscovering his love for music alongside 80,000 people who got to witness that rediscovery. It was messy. It was imperfect. It was unprofessional by typical standards. It was also magic. And sometimes magic can't be planned. Sometimes it just happens when someone brave enough to shout for a forgotten song and someone brave enough to remember it. Blue Moon. A song Elvis hadn't sung in 15 years. A song that unlocked a door to the past and reminded him of who he'd been before fame complicated everything. That night, for 2 hours, Elvis got to be that person again. Not the icon, not the legend. Just a guy who loved music and wanted to share that love with people who understood. And 80,000 people got to witness the moment when Elvis Presley remembered why he'd started singing in the first place. Sometimes, the best performances are the ones we don't plan. Sometimes, the most powerful moments come from abandoning the script and following our hearts. That's what Elvis did in Detroit, and for one perfect, unrepeatable night, he was free. If this story of spontaneity, vulnerability, and rediscovering passion moved you, subscribe and share it. When was the last time you did something completely unplanned that reminded you why you started? Let us know in the comments. Hit that notification bell for more true stories about the magic that happens when we abandon the plan and follow our hearts.